Lameness is one of the most costly concerns that dairy farmers deal with, and finding ways to minimize or eliminate lameness in a herd has always been a top priority in the dairy industry for many years. Digital dermatitis is the most common lesion found in dairy cattle, accounting for at least 15% of all lesions. It is an infectious and highly contagious disease caused by bacteria that affect the skin at the base of the hoof heel. Since digital dermatitis, or DD, is an infection caused by bacteria, is it possible that an animal could fend off the infection if their immunity was better? Let's take a brief look at the immune system. Immunity is the ability of an animal to resist a particular infection, either through production of specific antibodies or through different types of white blood cells. These two types of immunity are referred to by different names and operate differently.
So the cell-mediated immune response is typically controlled by what are called T cells of the immune system. And this response is particularly important for defending against viral infection, whereas the antibody-mediated immune response is mainly dominated by what are called B cells of the immune system. And these cells produce antibodies, and these antibodies are particularly important for defending against bacteria. So that would be your response that is most useful against bacteria. But one thing to note is that both of these responses do work together to generate the overall immune response. So it is important to ideally have enhanced responses for both in order for an individual or animal to have broad-based disease resistance so they can defend against all the pathogens that cause a variety of diseases.
Cattle with better immunity have been shown to ward off other diseases and disorders, such as mastitis, metritis, ketosis, displaced abomasum, and retained placenta. If we can identify animals that are high immune responders versus low immune responders, then we could breed herds that are less likely to be impacted by infectious lameness. But how can we identify animals that are high immune responders?
Previously, what we've done is we would actually come out to farms and physically perform a test on the animal, and this test would evaluate both the antibody and cell-mediated immune response that I just spoke about. But that's a pretty labor-intensive test. So more recently, we've actually partnered with CMEX Alliance, and we've developed a genomics test with them to test for immune response. So through their Elevate test that they offer to producers, a farmer could actually use that test and then figure out whether their animal was a high immune responder.
Now that we know which animals are high immune responders, we were able to ask whether these particular animals are better at fending off DD infection. A team of researchers at the University of Guelph did just that.
So the study we did, we looked at the prevalence of digital dermatitis on dairy farms in Ontario, where these cattle had been classified as high, average, or low immune responders. And this data on the hoof lesions was collected by the hoof trimmers that would trim for that farm. So then what we found was that the high antibody responders, so those that were better at defending against bacterial infections, had a lower prevalence of digital dermatitis compared to the average and low antibody responders.
So what does this mean for dairy producers? There are a few ways that producers can use this knowledge to strengthen their herd.
If they're able to have animals in their herd that have a lower incidence of disease, as well as lower incidence of digital dermatitis, that could mean big economic gains for them. I would suggest that producers maybe consider breeding for enhanced immune response, and this can actually be done quite easily in conjunction with CMEX Alliance, as they do have bulls that we've identified as having enhanced immune response, and these are labeled as Immunity Plus bulls, as well as before I talked about, they have that genomics test for female animals, which is the Elevate test.
Researchers continue to work on the issue of DD from multiple angles, and are committed to developing strategies to reduce lameness on farm. Be sure to follow the work of the Dairy Research and Extension Consortium of Alberta for the latest developments.